25 years, the Cropper Foundation has been working to influence development policy locally, regionally, and globally, so that issues such as socioeconomic inequity, climate change, and others are addressed not as disconnected issues, but in a holistic manner. We're here on location at Veni on the Terrace at Lady Chancellor Hill here in Port of Spain, Trinidad, where we will chat with Omar Mohammed, the CEO of the Cropper Foundation. Welcome to another episode of Caribbean Connections. Omar, welcome to Caribbean Connections. We are delighted to have you here with us on set, and we're here at the wonderful Veni on the Terrace on Lady Chancellor Hill in the Upper Hills here in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Omar, we'll get right into it. The Cropper Foundation, where you are currently the CEO, has been in existence for around 25 years. You all have been doing work very much in the trenches with civil society groups, NGOs, in various areas regarding education for sustainable development, natural capital, civil society leadership, and a host of other areas. Can you tell us about the Cropper Foundation? What is the Cropper Foundation?
Sure, well, thanks again to Caribbean Airlines for having us.
We're delighted to host you.
This fantastic vantage point, I think, which shows off, the beauty of our natural environment.
Indeed.
And the Cropper Foundation, like you said, we've been around for close to 25 years. And it really is a testament to this idea that we as Caribbean people can solve a lot of our problems using ingenuity and innovation and imagination grown right here in the Caribbean.
Well, that we are very creative,
Yes.
energetic, and vibrant people.
Yes, so that really was the philosophy of our co-founders, John and Angela Cropper, who saw this as a vehicle for them and their sort of close colleagues from around the Caribbean, who saw this vision for the Caribbean being the self-sustaining region. So 25 years down, we still continue that. We try to focus on some of the big picture issues that we as a region are continuing to grapple with, some of which are old, some of which are new, and seeing how we can leverage our own unique set of skills that are tested and homegrown right here in this space to try and fix and push a little further towards this whole idea of sustainability and sustainable development.
Omar, what are some of the key projects that the Cropper Foundation is currently focused on?
Well, we have quite a lot. We can go all day, but we focus on a couple of key areas. So we have these legacy projects, these areas of work that we do around sustainable agriculture, biodiversity, which is really looking at the species in nature and how they thrive and so on. And then we work on some more sort of innovative approaches in data science and technology around these types of issues. Yeah.
Yes, we know the data drives a lot of the focal points.
Exactly.
For organizations.
Yeah. So we do some of that, and we also try to place a big focus on civil society and the role that NGOs play themselves. So a couple of key projects that we're doing right now. One is a project that we fondly call Ignite CSOs. And it's really around civil society, nonprofit sector right here in Trinidad and Tobago, and how the sector is responding to some of these, what we call issues around closing civic space. So stuff around, legislation on money laundering, terrorism financing, and some of the unintended consequences that's had on the operations of nonprofits. Can't open bank accounts and those kinds of things.
So policy type work.
Policy type work, yes, working directly with the state and financial institutions. We're also doing work with the Inter-American Development Bank on a range of different projects that include circular economy. So we've convened, dozens and dozens of collaborators who are working in the sphere of circular economy. So that's recycling, that's upcycling, that's using materials that was considered waste to actually be value-added products. And then we're also in tech and data science. We're doing work with blockchain and AI and how those things could actually be applied to things like, counting biodiversity on a farm and getting farmers to be able to use that type of technology to access financing. So we're doing a range of different things that are all interconnected towards this final goal of, like you said, working in the trenches, making things accessible to people who are working on the ground and connecting them to, the policymakers, the financial institutions, technical agencies, and so on.
So it's about bringing a lot of stakeholders together who are impacted by various changes that may be taking place globally.
Yes.
In terms of technology, innovation, and really the impact on climate change that is impacting every aspect of life as we know it. You raised an important point, well, a few, but you hit on the circular economy. And for us in sustainability, it is a term that is familiar. And I recall at a major investment show earlier this year, the Cropper Foundation featured prominently because you actually created and highlighted a circular city. Let us delve a bit into that concept of the circular economy and the circular city, so that let's break it down so people understand what we mean by that.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that concept and execution was fully in the hands of my amazing team at the Cropper Foundation. So, I just have to give kudos and hats off to them.
It was very well executed.
I sort of looked on from the sidelines in awe and amazement. But that circular city really was the culmination of about 3 years of work under this Catalyzing the Circular Economy project with the IDB.
Right.
And in that, we were doing quite a number of things. We were supporting the first sort of private sector player within the recycling space called Every Bottle Back, which people might know. They're actually paying people to return their PET
bottles,
plastics.
yes.
So we helped support their operationalizing. And we also brought together over 20 players within the space, from the Environmental Management Authority, SwimCall, to NGOs, to a couple of private sector companies in this circular economy advisory group. And they helped create this campaign that we called That's Good Thing, which is really a way for us to, again, bring people around the table and talk about how could we all communicate the different things that we're doing within this space. It's a small country, it's a small space. We should be able to, engage with one another. So this committee came together. We started this campaign called That's Good Thing, and the culmination was the Circular City at the Trade and Investment Convention. And in that, over those couple of days, we were able to create space, because that's again what we do. We create space and we convene. And we brought together over 20 players in the field of circularity. And they came and they showcased their work and their activities. And again, as you know, TIC is a massive undertaking.
It's the largest show of that type in the region.
Exactly. So we created space for not just some of the bigger companies in our advisory committee who might have already had a space there, but some of the small NGOs that are doing work in communities who necessarily probably wouldn't have ever showcased at TIC. But our goal was to bring them all together into one space to see that we have actors from all different levels who are actually contributing to this idea of circularity, like you said, which is really this idea of moving away from this traditional linear type of approach where we pull resources out of the earth, we create some product, and we just dump it. Right. So we want to move away from that to say, okay, well, what you dump could actually be an input back into that supply chain or product development chain. So you actually reduce that impact that you're having on the earth itself.
On that point, as individuals, because what I think many people may not grasp is that sustainability is a way of life. It is not about, well, that's for the environmentalists to do, And that's for the government to do. And it's for everybody else to do. When in truth and in fact, we all have a responsibility. How as individuals, what are your thoughts on that? How as individuals can we really live more sustainable lives here every day?
So I would attach that, well, first of all, to, again, like you said, it's individual responsibility. So there are many things that we can do which really actually simulated the name of that original campaign called That's Good Thing.
Yes.
Because it really was a reflection of when you were younger. Most of us, and we were going to throw away something, and your mother would say, no, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Don't get rid of that. And so it's this idea that, these things have been part of our culture forever. And it's you taking that one step forward and also hopefully encouraging the other people in your circle to take that step forward.
And every little helps in every sphere.
Of course, yeah.
So every little bit of garbage that we could recycle, every little bit of plastic, and every little bit of lobbying that could possibly be done adds up in the scheme of making sustainability a way of life.
Yeah.
Now, as we say here, let us get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
This work cannot be easy, even on the best of days. What are some of the major challenges that the Cropper Foundation has faced in the 25 odd years?
Well, I'll try and be concise, even though we can probably talk about challenges all days. Because, Trinis love to talk about problems.
Oh, yes.
But, I'll talk about a couple. The first one being that there still is a lack of understanding, I think, by everyone, by politicians, decision makers, private sector, other members of society, on the importance of civil society groups like ours. We are technical agencies like the foundation. We are groups that literally provide life-saving care to persons in vulnerable communities. You have groups that are immediate first responders after disasters. Literally, the country was shut down if the sector doesn't do its work. But that importance doesn't necessarily come through a lot, I believe, in the respect that's given to the sector.
Doesn't translate.
So you have to work extra hard to find a space and to create a space, actually, for ourselves. So that's the first one. The second one, as a group working and known for primarily environmental work, that challenge really exists in my own estimation, a sort of historic lack of appreciation, particularly by Trimegonians, on the value of nature and the environment.
We have we take our environment a bit for granted.
Exactly.
We think that this is ordinary when it really is extraordinary existence we have here
100%.
in the region.
And I think, we can have many different reasons why. We have this traditional petrochemical industry. We probably haven't been as dependent on tourism as some of our sister islands, and so on and so on. But the fact is that does show up in how the environment and nature is represented and respected, not just by us, but in our policies and decision making as well. So that again becomes a challenge when you're trying to lobby and work for maybe some more progressive views on how nature could be respected, how nature could be valued, how nature could be incorporated into decision making. It's a constant tug between shining a light on its importance and actually getting things changed at higher levels.
And getting the full support of nature in the background.
Exactly, yes. So, the chorus of support.
The chorus of support, yeah.
And I think the final thing would be always about resources. People, again, and it comes from maybe a combination of the first two. A lack of respect for the sector. So there's this thing, we shouldn't pay NGOs to do their work. It's voluntary. It's all about giving back. But, happiness and goodwill doesn't buy groceries for a family in need.
You're still talking about livelihoods.
Exactly.
People have to live.
And the people who work in the NGOs as well have to make a living. So it's that lack of respect, but also, again, this sort of sometimes pushback against progressive change. So people sometimes don't want to put resources towards funding the activities and the NGOs that are doing this kind of work. So over the years, and I think it's a natural progression, it's always difficult to find resources when you start up. Over time, that has changed for us as an organization, since we've built a reputation, we've built a certain level of credibility. But for the vast majority of other groups, resourcing your work continues to be a challenge. And again, that's why we place such a continued emphasis on collaboration. Because again, it might be difficult for us, but if we all sort of work together and draw on one another, it hopefully most of the time becomes less difficult.
Yeah, that collectivity, support and understanding,
Yes,
that really gets us to a point of better appreciation for the role of each stakeholder.
yes, exactly.
So we know about the challenges, but what do you want to shout about? What makes you particularly proud to lead the Cropper Foundation?
So a couple of things. The foundation itself is really an institution that was born out of love. This husband and wife, wanted to create an institution to give back, both for themselves, but also in memory of their only child that had died a year before the foundation started. So that element of care and compassion has really permeated everything that we do. From how we manage our team, to how we build our partnerships, to how we approach a lot of the work. And for me as a young professional who at that time started my career at the foundation straight out of the University of the West Indies, that for me has really sort of integrated itself in how I see my work in the world. So just personally and selfishly, I am very proud of being a sort of living testament to the values of the foundation. So that's the individual selfish answer. But as an organization, I think we have so many things to be proud of. We've built a reputation of being a convener and a collaborator. People, I have to say, and it's probably patting myself on the back, people come to us when we ask them to come around the table. And in many situations, people come around the table who may not necessarily have sat across from one another if they had their way.
That speaks to the element of respect that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, and credibility.
And credibility, yes.
People know that, we are a civil society organization, so we have strong views and opinions. We are advocates for different points of view. So we're not, in many cases, neutral on topics. But we also approach things from an element of respect. And we approach things from a point of needing to listen to the other person. We might disagree, but we've created that space. So people come to us when we want to convene things. So that's why everything we do, no matter if it's a 6-month project or a 4-year project, it's always done in collaboration. And that's something I think that we can be extremely proud of. The third thing is this idea of constantly pushing the boundaries. And for me, that's always been something that excites me about the work, and I think excites a lot of people about the work of the foundation. We've also built a reputation for pushing the boundaries in terms of data science and tech. We've done some really cutting-edge work on AI and agriculture with National Geographic, and right now we're pursuing a couple different activities around using large language models for climate justice. We're looking at how we can design digitized game playing for disaster risk reduction, a bunch of really cool stuff. So we've also built a reputation for that, about pushing those boundaries. And so I think, in essence, really, what I'm proud of is our willingness to be imaginative and be creative.
Yes, indeed. And also to remain relevant. Exactly. A lot of organizations, even in spite of their good intentions, we have to recognize that change is part and parcel of life, and we have to keep abreast of the changes. You care to delve a little into the AI and agriculture?
Sure. So it was done under this National Geographic Microsoft grant, which we applied for, and to be 100% honest, I had not even the slightest hope that we would get. Not even. But lo and behold, we did. And we were partnering with TT Lab, which is this think tank out of the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. And the project was really looking at how we could use AI to support small farmers here in Trinidad and Tobago to use remote sensing. So remote sensing in this case was done using drones.
Okay.
So like in the United States and so on, they use these super expensive drones to fly over these hundreds of acres and map using sensors and stuff to see the extent of vegetation, the health of the soil and so on. But the issue is that those drones are, one, super expensive and also built for much larger areas. The traditional farm in Trinidad and Tobago is about 1.5 to 2.5 hectares. Right. So they're considered smaller
farms.
So the goal of the project really was to design, and again, I'm not a data scientist, so excuse me if I get the language maybe a little bit wrong, but to design like an ecosystem of AI models that could be used to basically overlay the readings from an expensive drone that we bought and a cheaper drone to be able to, at some point, be able to match the outputs. So we did it. We looked at mapping vegetation cover. I think we looked at mapping weed cover and so on, and water saturation. So the idea is that you could fly your drone across your field a couple times, let's say a month, and map out and have data that could be used later down the line if you want to change your cropping patterns, or let's say if you get flooded and you want to submit claims to the Ministry of Agriculture.
You have the evidence.
You have the evidence, yeah.
Yes. So what next? The Cropper Foundation, we're going into 25 years is a long time, and you're there keeping relevant. You continue to work in the trenches, you continue to work at the policy and developmental levels. What does the future look like?
So at the organizational level, we've gone through over the last couple of years a period of sort of reconsolidation. So we've really sort of tried to figure out our strengths and dig deep into those things. So moving on, again, in this coming out of this quarter century of work, we're re-exploring how we engage with the wider Caribbean. So that's a big part of our future, understanding how we take what we've learned and we take our experiences in limited ways with other territories in the Caribbean to really step out there in a much bigger way. So that's a big part of our future.
The Caribbean connection.
The Caribbean, exactly, Caribbean connection. Pun intended.
Yes, indeed.
And the second part is really taking a much deeper look at the critical issues that are propping up a lot of the traditional problems that the Caribbean faces. So, we always speak about things like, poverty and inequality and now disasters. But how can we as an organization help tackle not just the symptoms, but a lot of the sort of underlying architecture that kind of keeps these things becoming and being problems? We're also taking a much bigger step into the role of civil society supporter, to understand that yes, we're known for sustainability and environment, but fundamentally we're a member of civil society. And there's so many things that need to happen for the sector as a whole that right now might not necessarily be happening with the speed and the coordination that it needs to happen with. So one thing being, again, like I mentioned, stuff around anti-money laundering legislation as a result of the FATF and so on and so on. So we're really trying to step into that role to be this watchdog for civil society, to sort of take on that burden with partners, of course, but to be that watchdog to say, okay, these things are happening, this will affect the sector, and then start to operate at that policy level. And then finally, it's coming back to a very fundamental part of our own history, which is a look at the arts and culture and how that influences development and sustainability. The foundation started off by hosting a residential writers workshop for writers in the Caribbean in 1999.
I remember that.
Yes, so that's over 25 years ago. And that really kicked us off. And it's sort of, again, ebbed and flowed over the last quarter century. So by investing our energy and work into coming back into the arts, it's also something that we're almost like bookending these 25 years. We started off with that, and we really want to get back into it in a very big way. So that's organizationally. Individually, as the current Chief Executive Officer, I've been with the foundation for just over 12 years. At the start of my career, there was a hiatus in the middle, and I came back as CEO just over 6 years ago. And like I said before, it was such a fundamental, formational part of my own sort of professional career that Angela Cropper, who was our co-founder, used to always say that she got from her own mentor, Lloyd Best, who many people would know.
Oh, yes.
And
well respected throughout the
yes,
length and breadth of our region.
The definition of a Caribbean intellectual.
Oh, yes. A Caribbean man.
A Caribbean man, yes.
Played baseball in Cuba. They know him well.
Yes.
He's well known in Cuba.
So
yes.
She would always say that the first responsibility of a leader is to create new leaders and to create that space for leadership. So with that in mind, I've also sort of decided to go off on my own sort of leadership journey outside of the foundation. So we have been involved in a transitionary process over the last couple of months to see that through. So we will be welcoming a new member of the Cropper Foundation family over the next couple of months. I of course stay on as part of the board and so on, so we keep that legacy going. But so for me, it's really a bittersweet moment, seeing 12 years of work sort of come together, but also understanding the responsibility that you have to create that space for new ideas and new visions and new leadership to come on board. So that's really what the immediate future is going to look like.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we have such a good, solid group of collaborators, what we call our co-conspirators in development, that the future seems really bright. And we've built, like I said, this credibility. We've built this group of partners around us that I think we're really set up well for the next 25 years.
That's encouraging. 25 years of succession planning.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is important to any organization. So Omar, it has been an absolute pleasure here. We're at Veni on the Terrace at Lady Chancellor Hill here in Port of Spain, speaking with the current and outgoing CEO of the Cropper Foundation, Mr. Omar Mohammed. Thank you to our viewers. This has been another episode of Caribbean Connections.